obviously you sit the freshman quarterback, the true freshman. He's not ready. People just say he's not ready. I don't know if that's true. And I don't know. And this is something that I think Heupel has an option this year. And Brent, this is just me workshopping, and you can tell me if I'm an absolute idiot here, but I've been thinking about this all offseason. I've pushed back into the narrative that you should just do that. You should just go straight to Joe and like let Nico sit for a year and it'll be beneficial. Quarterbacks learn by playing. Like that's an important thing. You need to play. Nico needs to experience SEC defenses sooner rather than later. That will help him in the long run. But with what you've seen from the fan base, when you interact with folks, when you talk to people around the program, when you talk to other analysts and the writers, if you did a Volquest straw poll right now, I suspect that the most common record guess for next year is 9-3. Like that's probably, if I had to do a straw poll for next year,
that's probably right.
And if you do that, you're like, could Nico go 9-3? Could Nico get his lumps in? Could Nico do enough to get you to 9-3 and get a bunch of experience? Because you're playing for 2024 with a lot more talent, a lot more depth. And that's when the 14 playoff goes to 12 teams. You get 3 years potentially of a Heisman type quarterback. You get the Trevor Lawrence type deal. And you don't waste your time and do the what if of like, we'll just do this clean where we have one Heisman quarterback and then we'll do this Heisman quarterback and then we'll do this one and just bet on just hitting it over and over again. It's silly to me. Like, I think if Nico is close to Joe this summer, like if it's like a toss up, I don't see the value in not starting Nico right away and just letting him go, because if Nico's going to be good, he's going to be good against Virginia. He's going to be good early on, and he's going to be good the rest of the way. If Nico doesn't work, Nico's not going to work. It doesn't matter if he sits 4 games in the regular season to start off and Joe gets hurt or something or isn't playing well. I think it's silly that we just have this thought that it's always good for these guys to sit. I think if he's going to be good, he's going to be good.
Look at you. I mean, you're packing Joe Milton's bags. You're shipping him out of town right now. I mean, you're putting a for sale sign or a for rent sign in his apartment right now. You've taken his parking sticker. You took his seat at the lunch table. I mean, you're just stripping him out of everything. Listen, I get what you're saying. I mean, I do. All right, and you know, the comparison to the NFL part is tough because there's so much money involved in the investment with the NFL rookie quarterbacks that you're sitting there like the Colts. They're playing Anthony Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean. From day one, C.J. Stroud's the starter in Houston from day one because they've got so much invested in those guys financially. There is no sitting and watching and learning. Now, Will Levis may be a different situation in Tennessee because they don't have as much money invested and tied up in him at this point. So you don't feel the pressure to do those types of things. Remember this about Peyton Manning. He went 7-1. He won a 10-9 game in his first start against Washington State. They scored on a end-around punt return for their lone touchdown. And if there had been replay, the field goal drive probably never happens because he threw a pick that was ruled incomplete. I think he was 7 of 12 that day throwing the ball, maybe 7 of 14 for less than 100 yards or maybe 105 yards. I mean, you get through and you're like, oh, man, he's not ready. Now, to your point, he played, started to get a feel for it. It became his, right? And he starts to take off. Now, he's different. I'm not sure anybody's ready to put a gold jacket and a bronze statue in Canton, Ohio for Nico or anybody else at this point. Peyton was different than anybody I've ever seen from a preparation standpoint. What you're going to do is you're going to start Joe. He's earned it.
I thought this is an open competition, Brent. I thought this was an open quarterback competition.
Nico's going to play, early. You're going to get his feet wet. He's got the 4 games to redshirt. And then if Joe doesn't perform well and you think Nico's ready, you go play to win football games, and that's my thing with Joe. I had somebody come up to me and listen to the podcast. Man, you just don't like Joe, do you? I'm like, no, I love Joe. I got no problem with Joe. Well, you're pretty hard on him. No, I'm not. What I'm saying is with Joe is Joe's still got to show it week in, week out. And I'm with you. I'm not taking anything away from the Clemson performance, okay? The MVP of that game for Tennessee was Aaron Beasley. It should have been Aaron Beasley and not Joe Milton. But to Joe Milton's credit, he didn't overthrow Ramel Keaton. He didn't
Mm.
overthrow Squirrel White on the 2 deep balls, which what have we said, since the first time we saw Joe Milton
The
play in a
pick game.
uniform is like,
Mm.
oh geez, he can't hit the deep ball. He
Mm.
made those throws. Credit to him. And now it's, can he go and do everything he needs to do week in and week out and prove it? The other thing too is, I mean, where is Nico? This is a fascinating time. This is always, I think, an interesting thing for young quarterbacks, particularly guys who are not handed something. Okay. How hard do you work to get better? Okay. Because let's face it. I mean, Nico's life is, he's played volleyball in the summer and he's done 7-on-7 stuff. I'm not saying he hadn't thrown the football, but like, how much does he sit down and really watch tape and really dove into something and really focused a ton on his fundamentals all the time and all those? I mean, this is a different deal for Nico than he's ever been through.
Mm.
Okay. How does he go about that? How much does he progress? How much does he grow with his own game? The same way could be said for Joe this summer. Because remember, a year ago, he's rooming with Hendon Hooker, who's in the complex 6-7 days a week. Okay, well, if you're Joe Milton and you're rooming with Hendon, how many times are you going to go ahead, Hendon, take off to the complex. I'm going to kick my feet up here and hang out at the house. Or do you feel like I got to get in the car and go with him and throw with the receivers? You don't have that guy in your room now. You're the guy who has to be that self-starter. Does he put in all the work that he needs to put in? So we'll see. Again, Joe's going to start in Nashville, and we'll see how he plays. If he doesn't play well enough, then yeah, I mean, you're going to play to win the game if you think Nico's ready to play. The question is, do you think Nico's ready? Peyton was supposed to redshirt and would have redshirted had Jerry Colquitt not gotten hurt. That's the part that a lot of people meant. They're like, oh, he replaced Todd Helton. Well, Todd was he was a bridge gap guy. Todd was just supposed to be the guy who handles mop-up duty, and then Jerry tore his ACL in the 7th play at UCLA, and it changed everything. I mean, Peyton was not supposed to play in Pasadena, California. That was not the plan. The plan was for him, and back then you couldn't play in 4 games and still redshirt. The plan was for him to redshirt. That whole season got wrecked due to injury. And then obviously we know what it brought about for the next 3 years. It was pretty good.
He's pretty good. He's right there.
So we'll see. We'll see where Nico's at, how much Nico works this summer, and where he puts himself in fall camp. He had moments in the spring that were really good. He had moments where he was a freshman. When he gets on the field, he'll have moments where it's pretty good, and he'll have moments where he's a freshman. Everybody forgets Hendon Hooker's leading Tennessee for a potential game tying or game leading score against Pittsburgh, and complete misread and throws to the safety in the middle of the field for an interception, because he was still learning the offense, and he made a huge jump between year 1 and year 2, and he got better throughout his first year in the system. So there's growing pains. There's going to be growing pains for both of them, and we'll see how it plays itself out. I know Josh Heupel, he's going to win. He's going to do everything he can to win, and whoever that means his quarterback's going to be is who his quarterback's going to be. He's not worried about that.
Didn't he start Sam Bradford as a true freshman at Oklahoma?
He did. Best option, I mean, and I think that's what I think the feeling right now is that because he's 3 years in the system, he started multiple games, your best option is Joe Milton. If Joe Milton starts, it's going to be because Joe Milton outperforms Nico in fall camp. That's the thing people forget. I've had this question asked a lot, like, how in the world did Joe start over Hendon Hooker? Like, what was that? Joe was better in fall camp because Hendon was too tentative. When Hendon started ripping it and turning it loose, then all of a sudden Hendon became a different player. Now, he didn't do that until he was forced in the game, and played. So it goes back to your question, sometimes, or your point, sometimes you just got to play. And look, so Josh Heupel, he played Drew Lock as a freshman.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any problem playing a freshman. His system can be user-friendly for a freshman. They can make that work. They call a bunch of stuff at the line for him and can do all those things to help him out. It's a matter about who can move the football the best and who gives you the best chance to win. Right now, I think the belief is that's Joe Milton, and that's where they'll start, and we'll see where they are in middle of September, late September, and depending on how Joe Milton plays. I mean, maybe you have to unpack his suitcase. I don't know. It depends on how he plays.
I would love to be wrong. Like, that's the one I tell people
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like, he seems like such a nice guy, and I want to be wrong on this. He stuck around, and his just friendship with Hendon was super cool last year. Like, I want to be wrong about this, Brent. It's sitting deep within me is that it's going to be Nico at some point.
Here's the other thing to remember. And again, you don't want to put a curse on anything or put the hex on anything. I mean, fair or not fair, he's had a hard time staying healthy.
Yeah.
He's never played through a season. So,
and this line might not be good.
Yeah. I mean, you better have multiple quarterbacks ready because, where is he from a durability standpoint? Now, I think it's smart on his part to lose 10 pounds, be more elusive, and go. But again, I mean, he's had a couple of freak injuries, the wrist injury, and then he had the ankle injury at Tennessee that cost him the job there, and he didn't get it back. So, can he stay healthy?
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to get hit in fall camp. How does he handle getting popped and those types of things? And you better have a guy ready if you're going to run the quarterback some, because you just never know, when you're going to get a guy banged up a little bit. The one thing they had with Hendon was the durability factor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still baffled. Maybe the toughest performance, and they didn't win the game. Now they scared him heading into the fourth quarter, but I'm still surprised he played at Alabama that first year he was here.
It's where he lost the 4 teeth, right?
Well, it's the game before where he got rocked.
I thought he lost a bunch of teeth in the Alabama game.
He did, but he also the game before in the against Ole Miss, he got hit, got popped really hard. Remember, Joe's in the game at the end because it looks like he's hurt his shoulder.
Yeah.
And I mean, not only did he play, but like he gutted through practice. I mean, he did more the first part of the week than anybody anticipated. And not only did he play at Alabama, he took licks. It's like his offensive line wasn't real good. But here was Tennessee with a chance, late in the second half and then late in the third quarter to make that game really interesting. That got away from them, because they threw a pick and they couldn't get a stop on defense. But coming out of that Ole Miss loss, I thought, okay, we're back to Joe Milton, who just ran out of bounds, and because Hendon Hooker's going to be out for a while. Hendon's tough. Super, super tough. I mean, he didn't get hurt. He didn't hurt his knee because, he got popped. That was just a freak open field thing. But, I mean, he's tough. He took a lot of big shots and bounced right back up, the whole time he was here. So we'll see how the quarterbacks hold up this year.
Last Tennessee thing, we'll get out of here. If the Vols don't land one of Jaden Matthews and Wingo, would fans be in the right to be kind of nervous about where Tennessee is at in terms of just elite recruiting?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't think so. I mean, remember you got the NIL stuff factoring in there. Ryan Wingo, that'll be an interesting recruitment all the way through. His brother Ronnie Wingo Jr., who played at played at Arkansas. Had a really bizarre recruitment, and not in a bad way, not like he was like shady or anything, but like he was kind of all over the map with schools. And this school was leading, and then this school was out, and this school who was out is now leading. He was just kind of all over the place, and I think you're seeing a little bit of that with Ryan, right? It's been Tennessee, all this talk about Tennessee. Now you're hearing about other schools, kind of what's going on there. We'll see what the NIL factor is, with that. JJ Harrell, who they have committed, that's gonna. I've always look. I mean, he lives a stone's throw from Oxford, Mississippi. If anybody thinks Ole Miss.